What is the single most powerful tangible piece of evidence or competitive advantage that you can share from your sector today?
To UOB, sustainability is a key competitive advantage. As of June this year, we have provided $66 billion of sustainable financing.
Because of our emphasis on sustainability and the achievements resulting from that, we have won tenders, not just in Singapore, but overseas as well. SBS Transit, we are part of the larger ComfortDelGro Group. There's operations in 13 countries.
We started the business 8 years ago, and back then, we did not know what sustainability was. Moving forward 8 years down the line, we are now in 8 countries, serving more than 100 million people across this area.
For us, ESG is really integrated as part of our business planning. It is not that something that's separate and we only do it because of sustainability reporting. We are one of the biggest guzzlers, so we need to do our part to reduce consumption. Or like the downtown line, where it goes all the way from Expo to Bukit Panjang. It goes through areas whereby they're very low ridership, places that are very high ridership. But to cope for high ridership, you need to cater your train deployment to suit that. But imagine it's quite wasted if they go to other areas for low ridership. So we have developed a tool, in fact it's a world's first, with system supplier that's able to take the different feeds in terms of ridership, people, travel patterns, and we are then able to break up trips. So instead of one carousel having the same headway, we can break it up into 2, for example, or even 3 that will cater to the ridership needs of the various passengers. So then becomes better use of energy. Our commuters are happier because there are certain places where we deploy more trains. And of course, as a company, we reducing our energy consumption.
You probably read in many research papers that you can use silver, copper, zinc, iron or whatnot for these active ingredients. But where we were looking at was how can we upcycle certain ingredients to replicate or to substitute the use of these heavy metals. The past 2 years of doing research in that segment was really expensive. We were digging out, doing new things by ourselves. Nobody had the answers to that. But we managed to break the code this year for one of our products. We managed to upcycle fish scales, prawn shells, and crab shells. So we grinding up into its base form, and we realized that the amino acids that were being produced by all this were actually a very good active ingredient to combat formaldehyde. So we call this the blue bond technology, and this actually flies really off the shelves right now because they say, hey, you close the loop on many things. You solve the problem on using heavy metals, which are not good for the environment, and you solve the upcycling issue.
ASEAN's economy is still 75% reliant on fossil fuels. And hard-to-abate sectors like energy, aluminium, cement, which are important building materials for our urban cities, still find it very difficult to deploy technologies to be able to abate and reduce carbon emissions. But the key issue with sustainable finance is not to exclude them, is to transition with them. That must be the starting point. So this is where sustainability-linked loans comes in. Sustainability-linked loans, or what we call in the financial industry as SLLs, basically tie the cost of capital to tangible, measurable ESG outcomes. Whether we are looking at carbon emission intensity reduction per ton of aluminium, or a higher increase in the renewable energy mix. So when our clients meet these specific targets, we actually reduce the interest rate to incentivize them to actually embark on more carbon emission intensity reduction or more innovative features of actually defining their sustainability competitive advantage.
When we are plugged in as a multiplier of an ecosystem, we can influence our upstream and downstream to do certain things that are good for the environment and good for people as well. Imagine this, when you enter into a nicely renovated space that you have spent maybe $250,000 on, right? Nice space, but you get that sense of nasty smell, right? Your eyes start to tear, your lungs start to choke up. Why? It is because of the glue that you use, the solvent, the paint, the adhesives that is producing nasty gases. And right now, there has been quite a bit of research that says that this gas, formaldehyde, actually causes cancer. So where do we fit into this whole picture? Aside from creating innovative solutions to combat this, we have even gone upstream. We started producing our own glue. We moved upstream, create our own water-based glue that can really neutralize the entire issue from the start. So these are the innovations that we want to do and that we also share with our ecosystem to let them know that don't just treat it when you have finished with renovation. What if we started making this, manufacturing this? Will you support us? Of course, they say, is it cheaper? Is it better? Is it greener? If you tick all this, they say, okay, I'll throw in my support for you. And that's how we grow as well.
While sustainability is a competitive advantage, we also share best practices because we want to lead the industry to a better future. Today, we operate the most number of electric buses. We are now operating the first large electric bus depot. We've got lots of learning from that. It's a first for Singapore. But we willingly share all the lessons with the LTA and by extension to the rest of the operators as well, because we want electric buses to be well managed, well transitioned, so that we can then operate more electric buses in lieu of ICE buses. So whether it's in aspects of safety, security, customer experience, we're always trying to find new ways of doing old things better or doing new things altogether. And we have a very elaborate organization that does that. We created a Singapore Mobility Innovation Centre that's able to work with partners, and they include RHLs, SMEs, MNCs, and even startups, that we are able to co-develop, co-curate technological solutions that will benefit not just us, but the entire Singapore as well. And some of which I've just mentioned earlier, the digital concierge, the sign language, virtual assistant, all these actually came out from our Mobility Innovation Centre.
Only a very small select group of companies which are the high emitters are subject to carbon tax. But many of the leading clients that I speak to, they are not even subject to carbon tax, but yet they have an internal price of carbon. Why do they do that? Because once you incorporate the price of carbon into investments and financing decisions, just like how we would the cost of capital, your interest rates for a 10 million or 20 million loan that you take, it changes investments and financial decisions completely. It reshapes it from carbon reporting into carbon optimization, because it looks at basically how much more revenue that I could generate per ton of carbon. If you look at two major developments, which are the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism and the EU Deforestation Regulation, these are fairly permanent legislations that EU is instituting. And this is going to impact about between 16 to 18 billion US dollars of ASEAN exports into Europe, impacting exports of iron, steel, aluminium, fertilizers, and a whole range of agri-commodities. Singapore will be impacted, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, who are key exporters of all these agri-commodities, will be impacted. But the key thing is this: global regulations can be a barrier to trade. But if you have developed the competitive advantage ahead of time, this can be a bridge and a golden ticket to more opportunities.